individually wrapped, meaning they've got to, like, wrap it too? They'd have to buy like a couple $100 worth of candy, individually wrap it, and then hand that out. Are you also concerned about strangers slipping $5 bills in there amongst the Zagnuts and Laffy Taffies? Because that's actually way more likely to happen, if for no other reason than it's easier than buying a bunch of weed. And with bucks, you can buy candy. But there seems to be some misconception among the people sharing these stories that dangerous hopheads sit around shoveling edibles into their mouths like candy corn, just popping one blazing blue raspberry gummy snail after another. If you're in the middle of a righteous snail bender, why wouldn't you plop a few down on some twerpy trick-or-treaters for grins and gigs? If you've ever taken an edible before, you know this is tragically not the case. A single dose is usually enough to get you so high you start inventing intangible concepts like math or Jaden Smith. It's some real bullshit. Also, edibles don't particularly taste good. To be honest, they kind of taste like weed. They're the shittiest type of candy, except for the whole getting high part, which kicks ass. They're closer to flavored vitamins, things you eat to fulfill an extremely utilitarian purpose, such as getting high, or going to sleep, or recording Let It Be. And so edibles aren't exactly a party drug the way passing around a joint is. None of this is to say that weed candy isn't a problem for kids, though. There absolutely have been cases of kids being taken to the emergency room after ingesting cannabis-infused sweets, and it absolutely is a growing problem since marijuana legalization. But in every reported instance, the candy was eaten accidentally, and wasn't handed out by some stranger on Halloween. It's almost always a case of parents leaving their edibles out and their kids finding them and scarfing them down, because that's what you do with loose candy. You suck that shit up like a dustbuster. And while the effects aren't fatal, like, say, leaving your gun around, there aren't a lot of studies on how leaving the weed sugar around might mess up a kid in the long term. And like, maybe we should make the packages look less like candy and be harder to open. And as one parent who dealt with this points out, make it federally legal so we can regulate such changes and do more studies on it. So, where did this spooky story come from? Well, this usually starts at the local level, with police stations putting out half-assed warnings and local news stories slurping them up before snowballing them to social media. But let's be honest, specifically the Facebook, the preferred platform for distributing fear-mongering memes designed to maximize our dread over imaginary threats. According to a Pew Research poll conducted in 2020, 53% of Americans get at least some of their news from social media. And one piece of news they definitely got was a 2019 Facebook post from the Johnstown, Pennsylvania Police Department announcing the seizure of 60 pounds of marijuana and cannabis-infused Nerds ropes while serving a warrant. The post urged parents to be vigilant in checking their children's Halloween candy for similarly tainted sweets, even though the Nerds ropes were affixed with labels clearly indicating their THC content. And nothing about the bust suggested the candy was intended to be distributed to trick-or-treaters. I mean, Nerds ropes is only number 60 on the top 100 Halloween candy by Dr. Anna Magis on listchallenges.com. So, it seems more likely that the people who bothered to sit down and make those labels probably intended to sell the Nerds ropes to other adults, judging by the fact that the labels specifically warned that the candy should be kept out of reach of children, and then they were found alongside 60 pounds of weed. You know who keeps 60 pounds of weed on hand? Drug dealers. And do you know who doesn't give boutique pot candy away for free? Also drug dealers. Media outlets around the country were only too happy to pick up the Nerds rope saga, using it to start a half-assed conversation about weed candy and trick-or-treaters. Even though, as I mentioned, the candy wasn't actually given to any trick-or-treaters, nor was there any evidence to suggest that was the candy's intended purpose. In fact, there was a good deal of evidence to the contrary. And while Facebook and social media have absolutely made this all worse, what's really remarkable is how the media has been doing this for longer than both the internet and legal weed have existed. The myth of random people poisoning Halloween candy to hurt children has been pushed by the media for decades, despite it going against one of the fundamental things we know about child predators, specifically that they are far more likely to be related to the victim than some rando. And so, of course, the only genuine incident of a child being killed by tampered Halloween candy occurred back in the 1970s. And the murderer wasn't a random stranger. It was the kid's father, who had injected a pixie stick with cyanide to collect on a life insurance policy and tried to pass the murder off as the type of stranger danger trick-or-treat killing the media goes ape penis over. In terms of actual strangers, there was also a dentist in the 50s who passed out candy-coated laxatives to trick-or-treaters and made 30 kids violently ill. But 2 cases in the past 70 years, and one of them funny, is hardly a crisis. Actually, one kid had irreparable damage, so it's not even funny. Oh, good, fun. But the point is, an entire industry of peanut butter panic and nougat nightmares and Skittles scaries and Hershey horrors and Tootsie terrors and stop me because I've run out. You're not going to? Okay, well, I'm done. I've run out. It's all been built around 2 isolated incidents, the most recent of which occurred over half a century ago. It's kind of interesting, this symbiotic fear-drumming relationship between police stations putting out candy warnings, the local media picking it up, Facebook spreading it, and then national media putting out think pieces about this thing that doesn't exist. It's like all these pieces are trying for some reason to maintain this myth, for maintaining something, some kind of like a quo, a status where there's always a new super drug endangering your kids. Speaking of that thing I just said, panic in the streets as the latest drug craze claims more and more of our heroes on the thin blue line. Cops around the country are overdosing on fentanyl, a synthetic opioid several times more potent than morphine. Because of its extreme strength, it's typically used to treat pain in cancer patients, but it can also get you really fucking high, and consequently, super fucking dead if you take too much. And while traditionally, you have to actually take a drug to see the effects, this demon powder is apparently so potent that cops have been dropping left and right after merely coming into contact with the substance. Even touching it will erase you from photographs like Marty McFly's screech-ass older brother. You know the one I mean. Check out this terrifying video from the San Diego Police Department, in which an unsuspecting deputy is struck down by the hammer of the gods after simply making eye contact with fentanyl.
Powerful body camera video of the moment a San Diego sheriff's deputy nearly loses his life to an accidental fentanyl overdose. This is video of Corporal Scott Crane administering Narcan to his trainee deputy, David Five-Eye. Now, to save him, a sudden exposure to fentanyl, it can kill you instantly. It's a drug 50 times more potent than heroin. The deputy had just found a white powder, collapsed as he was being warned, do not get too close to that.
Frightening stuff. To think that brave deputy nearly lost his life just by glimpsing fentanyl, the powdered drug equivalent of the video from The Ring, only 7 times more potent. What can we possibly do to defend ourselves against this murderous dust? If that extremely dramatic one-act play featuring a police officer falling over backwards like a Mortal Kombat character strikes you as bullshit, you're probably right. The video was shot, edited, and released to the media by the San Diego Police Department, without any accompanying medical records indicating whether the deputy who collapsed on the tape had actually overdosed. According to experts, medical associations, and scientific studies, the risk of being poisoned by passive contact with fentanyl, meaning touching it or even breathing in small amounts of it, is extremely low. For it to kill you instantly, as the reporter says, you actually have to inject or snort a bunch of it, and that would still take a few minutes to happen. Meanwhile, eating it would take even longer for it to work into your bloodstream. And I'm not saying it's a good drug, and make sure you test your non-fentanyl drugs for fentanyl, but there is just no situation where being near fentanyl will assassinate you in seconds. In an interview with the Los Angeles Times about the San Diego PD's video, emergency physician and Harvard Medical School instructor Dr. Jeremy Samuel Faust said that the biological plausibility that the deputy overdosed by touching fentanyl is nil, which is the Harvard word for 0. Dr. Faust, which, hello, spooky name. Somebody's getting into the Halloween spirit. It's his real name. Okay, well, there you go. Weird. Anyway, according to Dr. Satan, the notion that someone could overdose on fentanyl by touching it or accidentally breathing it in is hard to believe, considering that none of the people who get high on fentanyl take it that way. Would you go through the trouble of cooking a drug and injecting it if you could get the exact same high by shoving your finger in like a tub of especially delicious frosting? I'm not going to hire Evanescence to wake me up every morning if I can just throw their CD on to get the exact same desired and wonderful effect. Dr. Faust goes on to say that none of the first responders hospitalized after coming into contact with fentanyl actually had any fentanyl in their system. And boy, that's a big detail, huh? So, are cops all just big fakers making up bizarre lies to drum up public sympathy? Maybe. Some of